Hello and welcome back to SPINcast, the esports industry's #1 podcast. My name is Sheridan, and today I am here with Coach Pauly from Concordia University, St. Paul. So please tell us a little bit about your program.
Our program, just kind of as an overall view, is a varsity scholarship program. We currently have 46 players across 9 different teams. Not necessarily 9 different games currently. We do have a couple of different teams for Valorant currently. We compete in League of Legends, Overwatch 2, Valorant, Rocket League, Call of Duty, and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. We also have teams at times, depending on the season, for Madden, FIFA, and NBA 2K as well. We participate in kind of the 2 big collegiate leagues, the NECC and NACE. We do the seasons and then playoffs and stuff for them usually. But then we also compete in the publisher type of tournaments like CVAL, CLOL, CCA, CCL, all the Cs. So we do kind of I'm someone who is open to however much my players want to compete. That's what we're kind of going to do. So in terms of things we value in our program, I would say one of the biggest things we value is good students, because we value good students just as much as we value good players. Not only because there's a 2.0 GPA requirement to be eligible to play for us, but also because good students usually make good players. A lot of times there's good habits that will sort of cross over from being a good student to being a good player. So that's definitely something that we value in our program.
Can you speak to some of those good habits that carry over?
Yeah, totally. So everything from dedication to whether it's getting things done, persistence. A lot of times we have a lot of students who certainly could speak to how important persistence is in college, especially if you're taking some classes that maybe you're not as interested in. Persistence a lot of times can be a big thing to kind of get you over those obstacles to help you get a good grade. Same thing in esports, right? If you're playing a game, maybe you're playing a role you're not necessarily as familiar with, or you're asked to change your play style or whatever it might be for the best team. If you can persist through that, get over those obstacles, that can be obviously a big deal. So those are kind of 2, I guess, big things that I was going to mention as well, is that we have some pretty high standards that we set for our players. But those players who have that dedication, the persistence, the hard work, etc., most of the time will be very successful in our program.
Does your program have a facility?
Yeah, we do. So we have our own facility. It basically is half of one of our building on campus. One half is sort of offices for coaches, athletic coaches, and then the other side is pretty much all esports. So we just actually upgraded it this past summer as well. I think one of the best things about it is it's only accessible to our esports athletes. They have access through their student ID cards, and they basically have 24/7 access to the facility, which is really cool. We have a dedicated practice space and then a dedicated competition space as well. The practice space includes a lounge, which we have some couches, TVs, that kind of stuff as well. And then our competition space, we got doors that lock on both sides. We have soundproofing in there. So that's kind of a nice space to kind of lock in, so to speak. Along with that, I think one of the biggest perks of our program is we have our own fiber gigabit connection within our facility that is only for the 16 PCs that we house in our facility. So we're normally playing on 10 ping if we're in some kind of Midwest server, which is obviously a pretty big deal in esports. So I think that's pretty cool. We also just purchased brand new peripherals, so Logitech mice and keyboards, SteelSeries headsets, and then we also have height adjustable desks for each individual player. And then we're also looking at getting PC and monitor upgrades next year as well.
So tell us why your school is participating in the Cary to College event.
Yeah, so I personally believe that Cary to College and everything that you guys have done over the past few years that I've worked with you is it's a great way to find new recruits that I personally may not know about. I have a lot of connections here in Minnesota, so I'm pretty good at finding recruits here. But outside of Minnesota, I don't have those kind of connections. So being able to find those recruits that are outside of my traditional recruiting area, or even maybe they might be in my recruiting area, but I just, for whatever reason, don't know about them yet. Maybe they don't play on a, traditional third-party esports team or compete or anything like that. So it's really an opportunity for me to kind of connect with players and get a feel for, what current recruits are looking for too. What's kind of the in thing right now, is it scholarships, playing time, whatever it might be.
What important items should a student consider when looking at these collegiate scholarship opportunities?
I like it. So I think the number one thing that students should be looking for would be finding a school that fits your interests. That really should be at the top of the list. Obviously, esports is going to be one of those interests, but you shouldn't limit yourself to just esports, in my opinion. Just like I would say that to any other athlete as well. I have a background in coaching football at the collegiate level. I would tell football recruits the exact same thing, that don't just choose a school because of football, choose a school because of everything that the school offers you. There's so many programs right now, just specifically, that have collegiate esports too. It's grown so much in the past few years that it's pretty easy to go to a school you like and also compete in esports. So along with that, things like cost, academic programs, location, and then program support, I think, is a big one as well. There's some of the bigger schools that don't necessarily have the funding or the backing yet. They just have club programs, whereas many kind of maybe smaller schools or private schools do have the support and funding to go along with that. So that can be something to take into consideration as well. On the scholarship side of things, I know everyone likes scholarships. Everyone likes money, obviously. But I've also seen a lot of examples where players go to a school just because they received this massive scholarship, and then they ended up not really enjoying their college experience because it wasn't necessarily the best college for them. So I always like to throw that out there as well as something to think about.
What advice do you have for students who want to put their best foot forward when approaching coaches or even looking for these opportunities?
Yeah, definitely. So the best thing that you can do, and this is a Concordia thing, but also I've talked to plenty of other coaches who would say the same thing, that the being a good student thing, like I talked about earlier, is huge because a lot of schools can give you a bigger scholarship if you have a better GPA. So that's a huge, huge deal. And then, like I mentioned earlier, so many of those skills transfer over to being a good player in a program too. So I mean, that's really the number one thing. And then from I guess, just a bare bones esports side of things, being willing to grind your game, just really put in the time and the effort, but not just in the mechanical and technical side of things, but also in the knowledge side of things. I've met and talked to a lot of recruits who technically and mechanically they're great, but when it comes to actually talking about the game and playing in a team environment and a competitive environment, not a solo queue environment, they lack a lot of those skills. And so that can be a difficult transition for them coming to a college where they now have to work and play on a team versus just solo queuing every day. So yeah, those are a couple of things that I would look into.
How can students maybe get that experience of playing on a team before they get to college?
Yeah, so I think one of the best things you can do is there's so many third-party type of tournaments and that kind of stuff out there. I mean, even some of the publishers in games have, like League of Legends has Clash, Valorant's coming out with their own tournament system. There's so many different ways that you can work on playing with other people. I would highly, highly recommend not playing those tournaments with people because again, when you go to college and play with other people, you're not probably going to know many of them. So being able to kind of do that and hone those skills, I think would really help a lot of students, because you have to learn to work with other people. And that's not just an esports skill, that's a life skill. So that's going to help you across the board in a lot of different areas in life.
What are some of the important qualities outside of the game that you look for in college recruits?
Yeah, so obviously the ones that I've mentioned before were obviously some big ones. The academic thing personally as well. But one thing I guess I didn't really mention that I personally look for is I like recruits who are passionate about esports, and not just being on a team, but they want to be a part of a program. They want to be a part of something special. I know that's something, if you were to ask some of my recruits from this last recruiting class who came in this year for their first year, a lot of them would say that's a big reason why they came to Concordia, was because of the special program that we're trying to build. Not just, a really good Valorant team or a really good League of Legends team, whatever it might be. So really just the environment, the passion for esports in general, I would say that comes outside of the game is something that I personally look for.
What sets your program apart from other programs in the state or even in the whole country?
The number one thing I would say is what I basically just talked about. I don't think you'll find another program in the country that is going to be as passionate about helping our esports players as we are. I know personally, I tell every single recruit I talk to and every single one of my players in the program that this is something that I would have absolutely died for in college. This was not a thing when I went to school. I wish it was. But now, because of the job I have, because of the background that I have, I'm able to sort of live vicariously through a lot of my students and recruits, which is great. But again, because of that, there's a lot of passion, not only from myself, but from everyone in the program who they want to make this program the best program it can possibly be. Is that going to be us winning a national championship in every single game across the board every year? No, because not even the best schools in the country do that, right? But what it is going to do is it is going to allow us to have a great collegiate experience and be able to compete at the highest levels in every game that we play. So that's really what I think sets us apart from some other schools that may offer really high scholarships, may offer immediate playing time, that kind of stuff. I think we're focused much more on the environment piece and then being able to compete through that competitive environment.
How has your program helped recruits adapt to maybe being in college for the first time, playing on a team for the first time, anything like that?
Yeah, so we have I guess the technically end of summer, we kind of have our own like boot camp, training camp type thing where all of our recruits come in, they get to move in early, they get to have time to kind of adjust to living in a dorm or, living near campus, whatever it might be. So that's a really big deal for me specifically because I personally went through some various living situations in college that made it more stressful to go to school. And so I wanted to make sure that all of our student athletes did not have to have any of those issues. So coming in a couple weeks early, being able to adjust, and then also they get to spend a ton of time with just their teammates. That's obviously a really big deal as well. So that's kind of the first thing we do throughout the year. Once we start competing and practicing and all that kind of stuff, we do have some study tables that we do every now and then. I get grade reports every 3 weeks, so we check in on those academics all the time. I personally work with players who want some more personal help. I work with them either through the academic side of things on school campus with tutors or whatever it might be, or personally just setting goals, setting a schedule. Everyone's pretty well aware that esports players love staying up late and love grinding to the early hours of the morning. And so we kind of talk about from a life skills perspective, like that's not going to be a long-term thing for you. So how do we maybe kind of change that and start to make it a more manageable schedule for us? So I would say that's one thing we focus on a lot are the life skills side of things. And yes, esports is fantastic and it's awesome and it's going to be a huge part of your college experience. But at the end of the day, it's probably not going to follow you super far after college. And so how do we take what we're learning in esports and apply it to school apply it to after school once we get our degree?
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day.